My family. Chapter 1. The roots of our family. It all began in a small, quaint village, nestled among the rolling hills of the countryside. The air was crisp, the grass a rich shade of green, and the sun always seemed to set in a warm, golden hue. Our family, the Sullivans, had lived in this village for generations. My great-grandfather, Thomas Sullivan, had been one of the first to settle here, building the old stone house that still stood proudly on the edge of the village. The house had witnessed countless stories and was the heartbeat of our family. I remember hearing stories about Thomas from my grandmother, Eleanor. She told me how he had worked the land, farming through every season. But his true legacy was his resilience. Through wars, economic hardships, and the changing tides of time, he had always kept the family together. That spirit was passed down through the generations. My parents, Edward and Claire, carried that torch with pride. They weren't farmers like Thomas, but both were teachers. My father, Edward, taught history at the local high school, while my mother, Claire, was an English teacher. Their love for education was infectious. The house was always filled with books, papers, and the sound of their conversations about literature, history, and politics. Growing up, I was never short of inspiration. Every evening, my father would recount a different historical event, while my mother would weave stories of characters from classic novels, making them come to life in our living room. It was a magical way to grow up, surrounded by knowledge, love, history. Chapter 2. Sibling rivalry and bonding. I had two siblings, my older brother, Jake, and my younger sister, Lily. Jake was the adventurous one, always seeking thrills, while Lily was the creative soul, constantly drawing, painting, or writing. As for me, I was somewhere in between, curious, with an endless desire to learn and explore. Jake and I would often clash. He loved sports, while I preferred quiet activities like reading or solving puzzles. We were competitive, always challenging each other to various contests: who could run faster, who could solve a problem quicker, who could stay up later at night. It seemed like our sibling rivalry was endless, but deep down I knew that Jake had my back, just as I had his. Lily, on the other hand, was always the peacekeeper. She would often bring us together when things got too heated. It was her drawings that captured the moments of our childhood, our laughter, our arguments, and even our quiet moments of togetherness. I always admired her ability to see beauty in everything, especially the ordinary things we often overlooked. Our childhood, though full of rivalry, was also filled with love. It wasn't long before I realized how important these bonds were, how much they shaped the person I was becoming. We were more than just siblings, we were a team, each of us contributing something unique to the family dynamic. Chapter 3: A New Beginning. When I turned 18, something in our family shifted. My father, Edward, received a job offer in a larger city, one that promised growth and opportunities that the village could no longer provide. It was a tough decision. The village had been our home for generations, and the thought of leaving it behind was daunting. But after long discussions, my parents decided that it was time for a new chapter. I was torn. Leaving the only place I'd ever known was difficult, but the allure of a new life was enticing. The move marked the end of my childhood, and as we packed up the house and said goodbye to the old stone walls, I felt a sense of loss I couldn't quite explain. But I knew that life was about change, and it was time for the Sullivan family to embrace it. We moved to the city, where my father began his new role as a history professor at a prestigious university. My mother found a position at a local high school, teaching literature, and soon enough, we settled into our new lives. But adjusting to city life wasn't easy. The pace was fast, and the sense of community we'd once shared seemed distant. Jake, being the restless spirit he was, found a local sports team to join, while Lily dived into the city's vibrant art scene. As for me, I found solace in the university library, where I could immerse myself in my studies and get lost in the vast array of books. Despite the challenges of adjusting, we found our rhythm in the city. We began to understand that our family bond, the one that had been formed over years of living in the same village, was something that transcended location. No matter where we went, we were always together, supporting each other in our own ways. Chapter 4: The Distance Grows. Years passed, and as we grew older, dynamics of our family began to change. Jake had graduated college and was pursuing a career in professional sports. He was always on the move, traveling to different cities for games and tournaments. Lily, too, had found her own path, showcasing her art in galleries across the country. Her work was gaining recognition, and she had become quite the well-known figure in the art community. As for me, I had decided to follow in my parents' footsteps and become a teacher. I was teaching history at a local school and living in the same city where we had settled all those years ago. Though we all still lived in the same general area, the distance between us had grown, not just physically, but emotionally. We were no longer the tight-knit family that had lived under the same roof. Our lives were filled with our own ambitions, relationships, and commitments. We still got together on holidays, but it was never quite the same. The dinners that had once been filled with lively conversation now felt like quiet moments of reunion. We had changed. We had grown, and in the process, we had developed different identities. Chapter 5: A Family Crisis. It was during a holiday gathering that our world was turned upside down. My father, Edward, collapsed at the dinner table. It happened so suddenly that it took us all by surprise. We rushed him to the hospital, where the doctors confirmed that he had suffered a heart attack. The news was a devastating blow to our family. For the first time in years, we came together not as individuals with separate lives, but as a family united by love and concern. During his recovery, we all took turns caring for him. The hospital visits, the late-night conversations, and the shared meals in the waiting rooms brought back memories of our childhood. It reminded us of the importance of family and how quickly life could change. My father's illness became a turning point for us all. Jake, who had always been the independent one, dropped everything and came home to help. Lily, despite her busy art career, made time to visit. And I, who had always been the one with my head buried in books, became more present in the lives of my family than ever before. Through the crisis, we learned how much we needed each other. The distance that had grown between us seemed to vanish, and in its place was a deep sense of gratitude for the time we had together. We realized that family wasn't just about proximity, it was about being there when it mattered the most. Chapter 6: Healing and Reflection. After months of recovery, my father began to regain his strength. Slowly but surely, he returned to teaching, though his pace had slowed. The experience had humbled him, as it had all of us. It reminded us of the fragility of life and how easily we could get caught up in our own pursuits, neglecting the people who mattered most. We spent more time together as a family, taking trips, hosting gatherings, and simply enjoying each other's company. The distance that had once grown between us was replaced with a renewed sense of connection. We were a family again, stronger and more united than ever. My father, once the center of our family, now had a deeper appreciation for the simple joys of life. My mother, too, found renewed purpose in her work, and my siblings and I began to appreciate the value of family in ways we hadn't before. Chapter 7: A New Chapter in Our Lives. Years passed, and our family continued to grow in different ways. Jake started a family of his own, settling down with a partner and raising two children. Lily's art career flourished, and she eventually opened her own gallery. As for me, I found fulfillment in my role as a teacher, but also in the relationships I had cultivated with my students and colleagues. We continued to gather for holidays and special occasions, but now there was a deeper sense of appreciation for the time we had together. We had weathered storms, faced challenges, and celebrated victories, but through it all, we had never lost the essence of what it meant to be a family. As I reflect on the years, I realize that the Sullivan family isn't defined by the house we lived in or the careers we pursued. It's defined by the love, the shared history, and the bond that holds us together. Family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who stand by you, no matter what, and who help you become the person you were meant to be. Chapter 8: A Legacy of Love. Now, as I sit by the fire in the same old stone house where it all began, I realize how much my family has shaped me. We've come full circle and from the small village to the bustling city and back to our roots. Each chapter of our lives has taught me something valuable. We've weathered storms, laughed together, cried together, and celebrated our successes. But through it all, the love that binds us remains unchanged. The Sullivan family legacy is not just one of perseverance and success. It's a legacy of love, of understanding, of standing by each other no matter what. And as the next generation begins to grow up, I hope that they will carry forward this legacy, that they too will know the importance of family, and that no matter where life takes them, they will always have each other.